Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation Committee. This is January 18th. I'm Supervisor Arenas and the chair, and I'm welcoming everyone to our first meeting of 2024. So a happy new year, everyone, and we're going to get started just by calling this meeting to order and then also taking roll call from our wonderful clerk.
Good morning, Vice Chairperson Simidian. Present. Chairperson Arenas.
Here as well. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to start with our public comment, and this is item number 2. This is where anyone can share comments about items that are not on today's agenda, and if you're in person and like to share public comment, please make sure you submit a yellow card. If you're viewing this virtually, please raise your virtual hand to share public comment, and we'll start with our in-person public comments and move on to those that are virtual. If there's 5 or fewer in line, you'll be provided with 3 minutes to speak. If it's 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes if it's between 6 and 14, and 1 minute if there's 15 or more. But taking just a visual clue, I think we're going to be good. Peggy, do we have anybody online or in person?
We have no raised hands in the Zoom room. We have 2 speakers in chambers.
All right.
The first speaker is John Carr. If you could approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, Chairperson Arenas, Supervisor Simidian. My name is John Carr, and I'm the chair of the Santa Clara County Airports Commission. Commission bylaws require that we communicate with the board via your HULA committee. I am here today to ask you to allow us to do our job and to communicate with us. We have attempted to fulfill our responsibilities, but our efforts have been impeded. We sent a letter of transmittal in June of 2023, which outlines in detail the roadblocks that we have faced. The document has been in the hands of the clerk for almost 4 months now and has yet to go before you. I am here to ask you to consider our letter of transmittal and place it on your agenda at the earliest possible date. It deals with several important issues within the purview of the Commission. At our meeting next month, the Commission intends to authorize at least 4 more letters of transmittal to you that contain important information on lead, aircraft noise, and regional aviation issues. We do not want these documents to linger in the bureaucratic process. As a Commission, we are resolute. We will not ignore our responsibilities. We are the designated resource for the board to receive clear and accurate information from us as a commission and the subject matter experts we work with. We ask that you recognize our communications with and to you that are vital to both the users and the community at large, and therefore should be provided the time and consideration they deserve for appropriate action. Thank you.
The next speaker is Douglas Rice.
Chairperson Arenas, Supervisor Simidian, my name is Douglas Rice. I'm the Regional Vice President for the California Pilots Association. I come before you today in an advisory capacity to advise you, first of all, about the upcoming Vertical Flight Society 11th Annual Transformative Vertical Flight Symposium to be held in Santa Clara on February 6th through 8th. There will be over 100 presentations as well as exhibitors from industry. The Commission received a detailed briefing from Archer Aviation at its December 12th meeting, and they want to advise the board of the rapid advances in advanced air mobility that are occurring. While the current focus of the FAA is on the Olympics in 2028, it would be well advised to look at 2 earlier events, Paris Olympics 2024, and logically at the Super Bowl in Santa Clara in February 2026. Both of these events will have significant presence of advanced air mobility. One final admonishment we want to give to the county. The county has repeatedly run afoul of the FAA with regards to regulatory authority and jurisdiction. The following guidelines should be followed to avoid similar occurrences. Advanced air mobility is an aeronautical activity. The regulatory authority of the county is very limited. Pilots and aircraft are regulated by the FAA. Operations in the National Airspace System above 400 feet above ground level are the purview of the FAA. The Commission will consider very soon and forward to the Board a blueprint for advanced air mobility implementation in the county. It will consider factors such as governmental coordination, on-airport and off-airport operations, vertiport development, and community relations that will provide guidance as to the hows and whys of advanced air mobility in Santa Clara County.
And that concludes our speakers this morning.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Typically, we do not respond to public comment, as you all recognize, but I'm just going to note that I will be reading this letter of transmittal thoroughly. Thank you. We're going to move into our next item agenda, which is our consent calendar. I have no changes to the consent calendar, so I'm hoping that I hear from our vice chair if he has any, and if he doesn't, motion would be wonderful.
Move to approve the consent calendar as contained in our published agenda.
Wonderful. So that means that that's item 7 and 8 on the consent calendar. Second.
Vice Chairperson Simitian,
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful. We are just moving along to item number 4, which is the agricultural worker housing report. And I'm going to turn it over to Sylvia Gallegos from our County Executive's Office.
Apologies for the interruption. Before we start the next item, can we call for public comment on the consent calendar? I forgot to mention that earlier.
Of course. Thank you, Peggy. You are always keeping me on track. Yes, let's ask for public comment. I'm not sure if there's anybody in person or online.
There isn't, but we've met our obligation.
Absolutely. We check that box and make sure that we provide an opportunity for folks to speak. So we're going to move on to item number 4. And Sylvia, Happy New Year and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. The item before the committee is at the request of the board from the December 5th discussion about ag worker housing, and specifically you requested that the administration provide in advance of the budget cycles our, I'll describe them as preliminary requests for resources. And again, I want to underscore the fact that we're much appreciative of the board's acknowledgement that in some cases it will require more resources. So for mid-year, what we hope to do, and you'll see this in the mid-year packet on February 6th, is consultant support for what I describe as the permit transformation process, which I hope will benefit all applicants. And then for the FY 24-25 process, we have scheduled several requests. One is pursuant to the board direction, a ag permitting ally position, which we think will be an alternately staffed planner position in the Department of Planning and Development. We also are requesting consultant help with what I anticipate will be some of the deliverables from the permit transformation process. So one is graphic design support, because we know that it's often difficult to read government forms, and we're hoping to transition from more Medi-Cal-like to more something you'd find through social media or online, so more use of infographics, fewer words, 5th grade level. And the second form of support would be sort of language access, so translation of the information into other languages so people can read it in their native language. And then also from December 5th, and frankly from the August discussion, we are trying to determine a reserve number. And as you'll recall from the the last Hewlett meeting where you requested that we present some of the other jurisdictions' work. We're evaluating it now to determine what of those current initiatives may make sense for Santa Clara County. And then I'd like to take the opportunity as well to describe a lot of work that has been happening since the board action in planning and development. They have developed an ag worker application checklist, which I received within the last couple of weeks, and so we're finalizing that. And that would be part of a larger packet that we would provide to applicants to help them not only make good business decisions at the outset, rather than going through the development process and recognizing, that a project may not make sense, but also it's, as I said, it's going to be bundled with a bunch of other information, and one of it is really to understand, and this is what the checklist accomplishes, what you need to do to have a successful application. And then the second thing the department has produced is, at the board's request, is, I call it a dashboard, but in effect, it shows you all the pending applications and has all the pertinent information, and we'd like to share it with your office shortly. I'm going to take a moment to review again, and then we hope to deliver it to you as well. Facilities and Fleet, we have issued a notice to proceed with Gensler Consulting to conduct the San Martin campus planning, including, per the request of the board, consideration of potential ag worker housing on that site. The second body of work they've done, and it complements and really responds to the first item, which is that we did confirm with consultants and staff that that sewer development, that line that they're evaluating for expansion between Morgan Hill and Gilroy, there seems to be sufficient capacity for ag worker housing on the San Martin site. OSH is prepared, I understand, to issue a request for offers next Tuesday for the 8th and Alexander site in Gilroy for a possible development partner. And as you know, that project would include some number of ag worker housing. And then the Ag Commissioner, we've been working on at least a minimum of 3 survey instruments, farmers, farm labor contractors, and farm workers, which the 2 significant buckets are permanent or settled versus seasonal and maybe H2A. And so we've been working with your office and will continue to work with your office to finalize that. The one that I believe will trail more and actually may sync up with the peak of the growing season is the ones for the farm workers, where we really want to make sure that we get a really robust response rate. And so we're talking to partners, including UFW and others, about how we can achieve a really good response rate. And it may involve texting, so we're going to have to figure out how we can get access to phone numbers. So that's taking more time. Then finally, in intergovernmental relations, we have a meeting today with your policy director to provide an update on our analysis with respect to potential legislative proposals and work to seek out a legislative sponsor. So that's the totality for the moment in terms of the activities of the organization to fulfill the various work tasks and initiatives that have been posed to us. So I'm available to respond to any questions you may have.
Wonderful. I'll look to my vice chair first to see if he has any questions, so I'll jump right in. I really appreciate your update and all the work that goes behind this, because I know it was a very thorough but short update compared to all the work that's behind it, right? So it's so easy to say all of these things that you've actually accomplished, but I recognize all the work that's behind it, and so I just want to publicly just thank you for moving this along and for what it's going to mean in terms of possibilities for agriculture worker housing, and so I really appreciate it. One of the things I was thinking about was the 3 surveys, and you distinguish between the H2A and the year-round, right? And making sure that there's a robust response rate. I wonder if you, I know the Choa camp obviously provides their own housing, but they have a wait list for folks that don't actually get in, and I wonder if maybe those folks that are on that wait list would be folks that obviously are still continuing to look for housing and those possibilities, and would be good for the survey, or even the folks who are coming back in after the winter camp, the unhoused winter camp that takes place at Ochoa during this time. I think they'll be back. Agriculture workers will be back soon. The other piece that I'm really happy to hear that there's sufficient pipe allowance to make sure that the San Martin site is a possibility. There's, I think, a lot of holding our breath around that, and so that was really good to hear. I look forward to seeing that matrix of pending projects, and to know that there's so many in the pipeline is really exciting, and that will help them facilitate their projects over the finish line is something really that I'm looking forward to. So thank you. Those, that was my observation, my questions, and my comments. So I really appreciate it. Don't know that we need to have a motion for this, if this is just accepting a verbal report.
To the chair, we do have a public speaker before you go to a motion or receive.
Peggy, I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, let's go to our public comment first.
Okay, we have no one in chambers, but we do have one Zoom speaker, a telephone ending 150. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. And your mic is open.
Good morning. Good morning, supervisors. This is Doug Muirhead, resident of Morgan Hill. I'm intrigued by a comment that was made on possible housing at the San Martin campus, and how would you were going to connect to our sewer line, which carries waste from Morgan Hill down to the South County Regional Wastewater Authority. It's the JPA of our 2 cities, and I'm curious what authority you have or what hoops you would have to go through to actually add your output from farm worker housing to that sewer line to be processed at Straw. Thank you.
And that concludes our speakers.
Thank you to our speaker, and I'm going to look to my vice chair for a motion.
I'm happy to jump in. For a receive report, there's not a requirement for a motion, so it's at the discretion of the body.
All right, we will skip that motion and move on to item number 5, and this is the Supportive Housing Dashboard and Homelessness Prevention Programs Report. And welcome, folks from our Office of Supportive Housing. I'll hand it over.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Arenas. KJ Kaminsky, Deputy Director for the Office of Supportive Housing. I'd like to introduce Hillary Armstrong, Deputy Director for our office, and Jessica Orozco, Program Manager for our Homelessness Prevention System. This month's report includes our standard supportive housing dashboard and a report on our homelessness prevention efforts. Just to start with a couple of highlights system-wide, our progress towards our 2020 community plan goals are included on the first slide. Thank you. Thus far, since 2020, we've housed 13,450 people across the system. We are on track to meet that goal of housing 20,000 people by sometime in 2025. We also have a goal to reduce the annual inflow of people becoming homeless. This is tracked by people who are taking a housing assessment for the first time in our system. We have seen this number increase a little bit over the last few months, although in the most recent month, it did decrease a bit, so we're going to be tracking that. We've certainly made progress since the baseline in 2020, but are still working towards that 30% reduction goal. Next slide, please. In terms of the monthly tracking, here, this is where we can see month by month the number of people being assessed for housing for the first time. In October, we did see that highest number over the last 12 months, but then in November, we did see a decrease, so we hope that that trend decreasing continues. We continue to house over 200 households each month, with the most recent month being 209 households obtaining housing. Next slide, please. So with that, we'd like to spend most of the time focusing on our homelessness prevention efforts, and I will hand it to Jessica to share our highlights.
Good morning, everyone. Jessica Orozco, Program Manager with Office of Supportive Housing. The chart that we're going to go ahead and start with highlights our capacity throughout the County of Santa Clara. The table on the left side is our county-operated programs, which represent approximately 92% of the total capacity. There are other smaller prevention programs operated separately by nonprofits that provide important services as well. And then the table to the right, as you can see, is the homelessness prevention capacity and household served. As you can tell, our system has grown exponentially since 2016, when we started with approximately 200 slots of prevention capacity. Next slide. Thank you. This chart represents our prevention capacity and outcomes, numbers of which we're very proud of. For those, there's 91% and 96% that remain stably housed while in the prevention programs. And those that are exiting to permanent housing is 90% and 99%, which we're very proud of as well. For the households that do not exit to permanent housing, it's usually because they are so severely rent burdened that they need some type of temporary stay, usually with friends and family. Next slide. Thank you. This chart here represents the reasons for assistance. This chart is usually used to understand the most common reasons households request assistance through our prevention system, and we assume that these are similar reasons to those that become homeless for the first time within our community. Next slide. And then this chart, we wanted to highlight some of the types of assistance provided and the average amounts of assistance. As you guys can see on the table on the left, the majority of assistance provided is for rent. And the chart on the right represents the average amount of assistance per household. Again, something we wanted to highlight is that the rental assistance average has increased consistently throughout time. So when we first started our homelessness prevention system, our average financial assistance for rent was around $4,200 to $4,500, and as you guys can see, we're over $6,000 now, and something that is important to keep in mind of, because this means that households are either being served for longer periods of time, or that if we don't continue to invest in these programs, we might be serving less families since we need additional rental assistance. And then the final two slides will show general demographic information. We've separated here by household type, and as you guys can tell, both in our HPS and our EAN prevention programs, we primarily serve households with minor dependents. We also have our gender graph and our age tier. The demographics have remained very consistent throughout the years. And then excuse me. Finally, we have our demographics by race and ethnicity, the majority being identified as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, or Latinx community. And we do have in our prevention system many partners that meet the cultural and linguistic needs of the various groups that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, and with that, we're happy to take any questions you may have about the report.
Thank you, KJ. I'll look to my vice chair and see if he has any questions. No questions. And then I'm going to also look to Peggy because public comment is important and we need to make sure we hear from folks.
Checking now, we have no speakers on the item.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll continue on with comments. Thank you so much for all the work that you do to keep our families and our residents housed. That's really important. I love seeing that there's 200 over a period of time that are getting housed. I did see, though, that the deposit isn't, the assistance for the deposit isn't as high. I think this is on slide 8. And so it made me think about the comment that you were making, Jessica, about because there's so many folks that are rent burdened and beyond our system, right, that we can't possibly in a long term support them. I guess correlates with the low percentage of security deposits that, of assistance that's happening. Is that fair to say?
That's partially accurate, definitely. The other reason is that in the system, we try to leverage all of the other resources in the community. And sometimes we seek other resources to provide the deposit assistance for households that are moving into new units. And so it's a combination of what you stated and the fact that we also use additional resources.
And the reason that I'm asking about this is because I'm wondering what happens with those families that are so rent burdened, right? I know that you said offhand they might go to people, either their friends or relatives' homes, but how long can that really last for? And are they coming back to get this security deposit? I guess this is not a good indicator because you're saying we have a kind of a myriad of resources to tap into for that. What is happening with those folks in terms of their long-term housing needs? Are they leaving our county eventually? Is that what is happening?
Yeah, what we've seen a lot is folks moving out of the county or folks needing to stay with friends and family to stabilize for several months and then come back and potentially seek a deposit assistance. But a lot of it is moving outside of the area or, moving in with a different family member as well.
And are you? I don't know if you have this information, but and if you track, but where are they moving? Is it continues to be Central Valley?
We don't have that. We don't track that information. Some of the information that we have would be more just when case managers happen to contact families. But for the most part, once they exit our system, if they come back to us, it's to ask for additional assistance. But we don't track otherwise.
Interesting. It'd be interesting to see where families are going. I think we can see some of the trends, and when I talk with school board members or superintendents, they can see the patterns, right, in terms of where families are requesting to transfer to. But those are just kind of breadcrumbs, if you will, to kind of putting the picture together. I was just curious about that. So there's an RFP that you plan on releasing, right, with the city of San Jose, and I'm hoping that you will share a little bit more about the coordinator that's going to be in this new position under OSH and the role that it'll entail.
Yeah, so we released an RFP or request for proposals to select a new HPS network coordinator. And what that would mean is that the selected agency would be the coordinator of all of our homelessness prevention system. So currently, for example, we have 19 nonprofits that work within our HPS system. The network coordinator would really be leading those nonprofit organizations, making sure that we're paying attention to trends and in compliance, and most importantly, that families are being served quickly and provided all of the support that they need to remain consistent.
And I'm guessing that we will continue to oversee that particular recipient of the RFP, and how will we ensure that they are reflecting the kinds of trends and information that we want? I'm guessing that's all written and detailed out in the RFP.
Yes, we want to make sure that our outcomes remain very high, right? We want to provide the main great customer service, obviously, and make sure that people remain housed. So since the county will now be operating that system, we'll work very closely with the selected agency and make sure that the philosophy is, carried on.
Who currently does that now? Is it just internal?
It's a combination between OSH, Destination Home, and the city of San Jose.
I see. So that person will have to work within 3 different systems and bring all that information together.
Well, once we select the network coordinator, OSH will be coordinating that in partnership with the city of San Jose.
But I'm just recognizing that that is complex to work within one system and then coordinating among 3. Really looking forward to seeing how that works and making sure that is hopefully as seamless as it can be. So the homeless prevention programs, I'm going to move on to the homeless prevention programs that are provided about $11.8 million in financial assistance. Is there still a concern in obtaining enough funding for this upcoming year for those that are enrolled?
I'll defer to KJ for that.
Hi, thank you for the question, Chairperson Arenas. So we have funding secured for the upcoming year, some funding from our state sources, I always forget this acronym, HHAP, the Housing and Homelessness Assistance Program. We have funding committed from the city of San Jose, some from Destination Home, and we're also utilizing some of the HHIP funding through the managed care partners to support this system. So we have identified the funding sources, and the way, just to speak briefly to your previous question, this really is one system, one set of policies. The customers really wouldn't know the difference of where the funding is coming from. It's our job as the system administrator to work with the network coordinator to manage the administrative requirements for all of those different funding sources. It is complex in the funding source sense, but in the client-facing implementation of the program, there really is no difference seen between the different funding sources or how we are operating the program. It's consistent across all providers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Although it does, we do take a step back in terms of being more hands-on. We're leaving it to the hands of the coordinator to do the coordination, right? And so my comment is sometimes when an agency takes a step back, we need to make sure that there's a level of accountability, especially in the beginning. So that way, we've just seen over time how contracts can go awry. And of course, our families are the ones that are going to see some of those consequences, and not to say that, knock on wood, everything's going to go well and as seamless as it can be, but just to recognize that when we add another layer of accountability, who's overseeing the overseer and making sure that we're doing our part. And so I'm going to guess that there's a lot of investment from your staff to do that, and just making a note that we're taking a step back, and when we take a step back, some of that control goes to and the faith we have in the person that, or the coordinator that we're going to choose, the agency that we're going to choose to coordinate this, right?
Yes, thank you for the question. And sorry for not making this clarification earlier. We are actually going to be taking a bigger role because we're taking on largely what Destination Home was providing in the past. So this program, the homelessness prevention system, started as a pilot in 2017, and it was launched by Destination Home with funding from the county and the city in order to ensure the sustainability of the program and really make it part of our supportive housing as a system. The county is now taking on the role that Destination Home was playing. So yes, there is still, absolutely, you're right, there's a layer from the network coordinator on the day-to-day operations, but our team will be heavily involved in monitoring how the program is going, how the clients are accessing services. We'll be looking at, we do monthly monitoring visits with the subrecipients. So there's a lot of oversight from the county team working hand in hand with the network coordinator. We're not only looking at the performance of that coordinator, but also the other agencies, not only looking at outcomes, but also looking at equity and how do we make the system more accessible? Are there gaps that we could fill with additional partners? So it's really a team approach with the funders and the network coordinators and the agencies that are providing those direct services.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that there's been stakeholders who come to our Board of Supervisors meeting, and it's not necessarily when we have a housing item, but there's always some feedback, and so I appreciate that we're viewing this as getting closer to maybe some quality controls by taking on this slightly different role. All right, I'm going to move on. I really appreciate the report. Thank you so much. And this one we do need a motion, and so I'll look to my vice chair.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Semidion?
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. So we're moving right along. And the next is item number 6, which is our department activity reports. And we're going to go start with Jack. You are very lucky to always be first.
Thank you. Jacqueline Anshano, Director of Planning and Development. One of the areas I would just like to report is that I'm delighted that Sylvia has coined it, I think she called it permit transformation. Permit, maybe it means permit process.
Permit? You said permit?
I think that's what
Like
she coined it.
we're permitting the transformation?
No, we're working to transform. We have been working in the department for about a year plus on modifying our checklist, and we have now gone down from 24 application checklists to 5, and I'm really proud of that. I know that seems unrealistic, but we really worked hard. A large subject matter experts from DEH, Roads and Airports, Office of Sustainability, a large collaboration, County Council, and Fire, of course, our fire department. We've been working to simplify and minimize the number of different application checklists that we have had. And so we're really proud to have that up already. So going from 24 checklists to 5 is just amazing. 24. So we're now, I'm happy, trust
That
me.
is transformative.
That is transformative, right? And then in that transformation, we've been working and looking at how to better serve the residents of this county. And so in looking at that, we're working on modifying our public portal so that not only is it user-friendly, but that we can be in compliance with some of the assembly bills that have been approved. We had Assembly Bill 2234 that is now impacting how we process our building permits and our grading permits. And so we want to, we will be reaching out more thoroughly to the development community, our applicants roundtable, so that they know when we stand up the change in the portal that they're ready for that and that they can ask questions before we make that live. And then, as you know, our number one priority right now is getting our housing element certified. So we are working with HCD weekly right now meeting with them weekly to get our housing element certified and to understand their comments. And so we're working through that. We also are moving forward at the applicant's submittal of the funds, the Sargent Ranch Quarry Development application. So we will be moving forward with the processing of that final EIR that will not come anyway before the board before 2025. And so that's our big lift right now. And I will be available for, I mean, we have many, many things going on, but those are our highlights at this time.
Thank you, thank you. And we are going to move on to Harry.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee, Harry Freitas, Director of Roads and Airports. Short report, I think, this month. I wanted to let you know that the Uvis Creek Bridge that we have under construction, that's the second of 2 bridges on Uvis Creek, we're going to be switching traffic onto the new bridge in September. I always get too far away from my microphone, apologies.
Did you say September?
I'm sorry, what did I'm sorry.
I don't know.
We're going to open it in February
Oh,
to traffic. In order to do that, to switch traffic, we're going to close the road for about a week, and we're starting to plan that road closure. We'll be working with your office, Supervisor Arenas, as well as County Communications, and getting with the neighborhood. That's the second of 2 bridges that we've built on that road, so we'll be working with the community and getting the word out, and then that'll get traffic on that second bridge. I'll also let you know that the third bridge on Uvis Road, not on Uvis Creek in this case, Yagas, that bridge is going to be coming to the board later this month for authorization to advertise. So that project is coming along. I'll also share with you that we're completing our reorganization of our maintenance and operations group, which is consolidating a lot of our global maintenance operations, such as signage, striping, guardrails, fence. We're going to consolidate all that under one management group at our East Yard on Schallenberger and Oakland Road. And that concludes our report.
thank you. And Don Rocha.
Good morning, Don Rocha, Director for Parks and
Madam
Recreation.
Chair, excuse me, through the chair.
Yes.
Wonder if I could pull Mr.
Freitas?
back into the conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just wanted to check in through the chair on how things held up in the most recent set of storms. They weren't as bad as they might have been, or as they have been, I guess I should say, in recent years past. But I'm thinking in particular in some of the mountain areas that I now represent, where we've got a couple of hard closures.
Yes.
My understanding was that essentially there had been efforts to, I'll call it, winterize those locations, Aldercroft Heights, Old Santa Cruz Highway. How'd we hold up?
Yeah, so we did complete our protection measures, and everything's holding up just fine. I would say, though, that those rains were very light, and they were there was dry periods in between them. So we haven't, I don't believe, so to speak, weathered the storm yet. I guess we'll see how the rest of the winter goes. But we are monitoring those sites very closely, almost daily when it rains. I mean, we're on top of those sites, and they have been protected to the extent that they can be, considering that there's active slides in those locations.
Got it. Thank you to you and your team for the work you have done and that you're continuing to do. I know you know how utterly indispensable that access is, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. All right, Mr. Rocha.
Thank you, and good morning. Don Rocha, Director for Parks and Recreation. Since the storms haven't been as heavy as anticipated, the parks do remain busy, especially during the school break, holiday break. Department continues to do outreach to the public and inspecting our trail system. We do have temporary closures in place when the trails are overly wet, so that we're able to protect the natural resources and keep the trails safe for public access. They're typically closed to equestrians and bikes when they're overly saturated. So we've been keeping up on our trail hotline as well as doing lots of outreach to the public so they can be aware of the closures and plan accordingly. We're also doing a lot of outreach so that folks are able to plan accordingly when they're out in the wet weather so that they'll be safe. The Alviso boat programs were very successful last year. We had over 1,700 people participate in free access to the bay on the county's boat, as well as getting interpretive programs, and that included Title I schools as well for free access and learning about climate change and the impacts to the bay around climate change and sea level rise. So it was a very successful program. December 1st, we were able to have our gift certificates out so that people can give the gift of a county park. So they're able to buy a gift certificate, and people are able to use that on our new reservation site to be able to reserve campsites and other things based on these gift certificates. So that's a nice upgrade to our reservation system. And then finally, our Mount Madonna fuel reduction project is underway. We continue to do outreach to the community. We've started with shaded fuel breaks along Pole Line Road through the park, and then that'll progress over into doing some work within the forest to address some forest health issues and continue with our shaded fuel break work. So that's the end of my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Happy New Year. Edgar Nolasco, your agency director for SEPA. I have a short report today. For animal services, our kitten season has finally slowed down, so we're shifting our efforts to more spay and neuter of our animals within the shelter and then animals that come into our shelter from the community. As of today, 2023, we are doubling our current year intake as compared to 2021. And our fiscal division, as we're preparing the 24-25 budget to meet our budget targets as part of that, and our weights and measures division will be bringing an item to the board to increase our device fees as allowed by the recent passing of AB 1304. And that would be coming to your board on February 6th for consideration.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, just talked about the rain a little bit ago. That means we're probably going to see some mosquito spraying coming soon.
Great suggestion, Supervisor Smitty.
Well,
Yes.
I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting the mosquito spray. I'm going to let you all be the judge of that and use your best professional judgment. What I am suggesting is, please be thinking now about the community outreach and the conversations we've had previously about being timely, being thorough, and giving the heads up at the earliest opportunity to the folks who need the heads up.
Absolutely. We're taking a lot of your suggestions from previous years. We had a record 15 adult treatments last year, 2023. Right now, we are starting to do helicopter treatments and also utilizing our drone in those marsh areas that are not occupied by individuals, so that we're doing that as of right now and ramping up our education efforts to inform everybody to dump water. No water means no mosquitoes.
Again, through the chair, if you're going to spray people, you need to give them heads up, timely, thorough. You know, we've managed at the county level this tension in the community around spraying best when we have given people adequate notice. And, you know, for a lot of folks, they're not convinced of the need, they're not convinced of the efficacy, they're concerned about the composition of the product. Staff has given its best professional judgment. The board has backed the staff in that best professional judgment. But if we're going to do that, then the notice is key. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you, and I'm really open to mosquito spraying around my home, just FYI, because I am like they're like a moth to light. So I appreciate it. Okay, lastly, KJ.
Good morning, KJ Kaminsky, Deputy Director for the Office of Supportive Housing. Just a few updates for you today. It was on the consent agenda, but worth noting that Mitchell Park Place, we closed on the construction financing. On the policy side, today we're hosting 2 focus groups related to the supportive housing system improvements. We brought those to the full board on the December 12th meeting, and this work is ongoing, but today we're hosting a focus group with tenants of permanent supportive housing, as well as another focus group with frontline staff at those housing developments. To learn more about their experiences, and we'll be working over the next couple months to update our local standards for all of our permanent supportive housing. It was mentioned briefly earlier, but just want to note that the Homelessness Prevention Network Coordination RFP is out now. It is available for folks who are interested in applying. We are working on an upcoming solicitation for basic needs services. That includes services such as outreach, safe parking, mobile hygiene, and that will be released in the next 2 months. And then on the celebratory side, we have our Montecito groundbreaking coming up February 22nd. That's for 1265 Montecito Avenue in Mountain View. This is an 84-unit development, 42 units of which are set aside for rapid rehousing. And happy to take any questions. Thank you.
When do we, through the chair, I'm sorry. When do we get to celebrate that again?
That is February 22nd, Thursday, February 22nd at 11:30 is that groundbreaking.
Well, good luck. That is an awesome thing to look forward to. Well, that concludes our meeting.
To the chair, just real quick, there are no speakers in chambers on this last item 6, and no speakers in Zoom.
Do we take public comment for updates? Is that
Yes, it is a item on the agenda.
item on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. Well, folks missed their chance to question any of our directors here about their updates, but with that, I'm going to adjourn our meeting, and our next regular meeting is scheduled for February 15th. Yay, day after Valentine's, at 10 a.m. Look forward to seeing you all. Bye.